The vast darkness of space stretched endlessly, punctuated by the cold metallic gleam of alien starships. Commander Park Jae-won stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed the approaching Galactic Confederation fleet. Earth hung behind him, a blue-green marble of vulnerability, waiting. Lee Sung-min, the alien fleet commander, had spent decades studying human communication patterns. His species believed they understood everything about humanity. A young civilization confined to a single solar system, technologically primitive, seemingly insignificant. The Galactic Confederation had conquered hundreds of civilizations before, and humans would be no different. The first transmission came with calculated precision. A deep resonant voice emerged from the communication systems, speaking perfect English with an artificial tone that seemed to vibrate with mathematical certainty. Inhabitants of Earth, we are the Galactic Confederation. Your planet's resources have been identified as valuable to our collective. You will surrender your planetary governance and submit to our protection. Resistance is mathematically illogical. On the bridge, Jae-won's tactical team remained silent. Junior Communications. Officer Kim Hyun-ki's fingers danced across the holographic interface, analyzing the alien communications' subtle nuances. Something about the message felt rehearsed, almost mechanical. The alien ships moved with synchronized perfection. Each vessel looked like a crystalline structure of impossible geometry, reflecting starlight in patterns that human eyes struggled to comprehend. They approached Earth's outer orbital zones with a choreographed elegance that suggested centuries of refined technological superiority. Jae-won understood the psychological warfare happening in this moment. The aliens wanted to demonstrate overwhelming power, to create a sense of hopeless inevitability. Their ships were designed to look simultaneously beautiful and terrifying, a visual language of dominance that had worked on countless civilizations before humanity. They want us to feel small, Hyun-ki whispered, more to himself than anyone else. The command center buzzed with a strange mixture of tension and unexpected calm. Military personnel moved with practiced efficiency, their movements suggesting they were preparing for something far beyond a standard defensive protocol. Lee Sung-min waited for the human response. In all previous encounters with developing civilizations, this moment produced predictable reactions: panic, surrender, or immediate capitulation. His computational model showed a 99.7% probability of immediate human submission. What he didn't understand was the fundamental unpredictability of human nature. Jae-won's response came not as a verbal communication, but as a series of strategic maneuvers that immediately disrupted the alien fleet's expectations. Small human reconnaissance vessels began moving in patterns that defied traditional space combat algorithms. The alien fleet's initial reaction was confusion. Their targeting systems, designed to predict movement with quantum-level accuracy, suddenly found themselves processing unexpected variables. The human ships weren't running. They weren't hiding. They were playing. Like a complex dance, the human vessels moved between the massive alien ships. Each movement seemed deliberate yet chaotic, suggesting an intelligence that refused to be categorized or predicted. Lee Sung-min's primary computational matrix began generating millions of potential scenarios. Each calculation returned an error, a mathematical impossibility that should not exist. The humans were introducing chaos into a system designed for perfect order. Impossible, he muttered, his translator simultaneously converting the word into multiple galactic languages. Aboard the human command vessel, Jae-won allowed himself a slight smile. The first lesson was always the same. Never underestimate an opponent who has nothing to lose and everything to prove. The alien fleet had come expecting a simple acquisition. They would leave understanding that humanity was something entirely different, a species that didn't just survive but transformed every challenge into an opportunity for unexpected resistance. First contact was never about technology. It was about spirit. And humanity's spirit was about to become legendarily dangerous. The silence of space erupted into chaos near Jupiter's orbit. Human and alien vessels transformed the cosmic darkness into a canvas of tactical complexity. Commander, Park Jae-won watched as Kim Hyun-ki's unexpected strategies began unraveling the Galactic Confederation's perfect mathematical models. Alien weapon systems, designed for precise targeting, suddenly found themselves struggling against human unpredictability. Each human ship moved like a living creature, not a machine. They darted, twisted, and transformed their approach faster than the alien computational systems could process. Hyun-ki's fingers danced across holographic interfaces. He wasn't just controlling ships. He was conducting a symphony of organized chaos. Electromagnetic pulse generators mounted on small reconnaissance vessels created waves of disruption that confused alien targeting mechanisms. The alien fleet commander, Lee Sung-min, watched in growing frustration. His species had conquered hundreds of civilizations with mathematical precision. Humans were supposed to be a simple calculation, a young species with primitive technology. Yet here they were, turning sophisticated warfare into an unpredictable art form. Small human vessels began using Jupiter's massive gravitational field as a tactical advantage. They would swing around the planet's massive atmosphere, using its gravity to accelerate, change direction, and create impossible attack vectors that no standard military algorithm could predict. One particular human squadron, led by a captain named Park Ji-soo, executed a maneuver that would become legendary in future galactic archives. They intentionally allowed alien weapons to track them, only to suddenly use Jupiter's magnetic field to create a massive electromagnetic shield that reflected the alien weapons back toward their own fleet. The first major explosion came not from human destruction, but from the aliens' own misguided technological precision. An entire alien destroyer became a brilliant ball of expanding plasma, its complex systems overwhelmed by a strategy that defied computational understanding. Lee Sung-min's primary communication systems began generating error messages. His species had never encountered an opponent who could turn mathematical precision into a weakness. Humans weren't fighting with technology, they were fighting with imagination. Aboard the human command vessel, tactical teams worked with a synchronized energy that seemed almost supernatural. They weren't just defending, they were learning, adapting, transforming their entire approach to conflict in real time. Hyun-ki discovered something remarkable during the conflict. The alien weapon systems had a fundamental flaw. They could only target what they could precisely calculate. By introducing randomness, by making human movement inherently unpredictable, they could essentially become invisible to the most advanced targeting systems in the galaxy. "They're looking for patterns," Hyun-ki announced to Jae-won. "So we'll give them chaos." The human fleet began using what would later be called quantum deception tactics. Ships would simultaneously exist in multiple potential positions, their movement so complex that alien computational systems would simply shut down from information overload. Another human squadron, led by Captain Maria Rodriguez, used a technique that seemed almost suicidal. They would deliberately expose themselves to alien weapons, only to use advanced electromagnetic manipulation to redirect those same weapons back toward their source. Lee Sung-min's computational models began breaking down. Each scenario he calculated returned with impossible variables. The humans weren't just fighting, they were reimagining the entire concept of conflict. One particularly brilliant maneuver involved using small drone vessels as complex decoys. These drones would generate holographic signatures, electromagnetic noise, and movement patterns that completely confused the alien tracking systems. An entire alien battle group found themselves firing at illusions while human vessels moved undetected. The battle near Jupiter wasn't just a conflict, it was a profound demonstration of human creativity. Where alien technology relied on perfect calculation, human technology embraced uncertainty, randomness, and unexpected possibility. As the first phase of conflict concluded, something became abundantly clear. The Galactic Confederation had made a fundamental mistake. They had studied humanity's technology but completely misunderstood humanity's spirit. This was more than a battle. This was a declaration that humans would never be a predictable, conquerable species. The universe was about to learn a crucial lesson. Never underestimate a species willing to transform limitations into strengths. The battle moved beyond physical space and entered a realm of pure psychological complexity. Commander Park Jae-won understood something the alien Confederation had never comprehended. Warfare was more than technology. It was about spirit, emotion, and the ability to transform fear into strength. Lee Sung-min watched in growing confusion as human communication channels began broadcasting something entirely unexpected. Instead of military strategies or defensive communications, they shared stories, personal narratives of survival, of individual courage, of communities coming together against impossible odds. One broadcast featured a young woman from a small, coastal town in Argentina. She described how her community survived multiple natural disasters, how they rebuilt after each destruction. Her voice carried a tone of defiance that seemed to vibrate through the communication systems, reaching deep into the alien fleet's computational networks. Another transmission came from a group of rescue workers in Japan, sharing their experiences of supporting each other during massive earthquakes. They spoke about human resilience, about turning tragedy into hope. These weren't just words. They were weapons more powerful than any technological weapon. Kim Hyun-ki discovered something remarkable. The alien fleet's communication systems were designed to process pure information. They had no mechanism to understand emotional complexity. Each human story introduced variables that their computational systems couldn't categorize or predict. Alien soldiers, if they could be called soldiers, began experiencing something unprecedented. Their neural networks, designed for pure logical processing, started generating unexpected response patterns. Some might have called it emotion, though the aliens had no word for such a concept. Park Jae-won's strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Humans weren't just fighting, they were telling their story. Every broadcast carried an underlying message. We are more than what you see. We are adaptive. We are unpredictable. The psychological assault continued. Human broadcasts began including music, art, stories of individual human achievements. A transmission showed children playing in a refugee camp, laughing despite difficult circumstances. Another shared a musician performing in a war-torn city, creating beauty amidst destruction. Lee Sung-min's computational systems started generating error messages. These weren't just communications, they were complex, emotional viruses that infected their technological understanding. The aliens had studied human data, but data was not experience. One particularly powerful transmission came from a group of international scientists. They spoke not about conflict, but about human curiosity. They shared stories of medical breakthroughs, of technological innovations, of humanity's constant drive to understand and improve. The alien fleet found themselves confronting something they had never experienced, a species that could transform pain into creativity, limitation into opportunity. Human stories carried a vibrational frequency that their systems couldn't filter or block. Hyun-ki discovered that human emotional broadcasts were creating micro-disruptions in the alien fleet's communication networks. Each story, each personal narrative, introduced computational chaos. The aliens' rigid systems couldn't process the complexity of human emotional experience. Park Jae-won's final broadcast was a masterpiece of psychological warfare. He didn't speak about fighting. He spoke about hope, about human potential, about the ability to transform even the most difficult circumstances into opportunities for growth. We are not defined by our technology, Jae-won said, his voice calm and clear. We are defined by our spirit, by our ability to imagine what does not yet exist. The alien fleet found themselves facing an opponent that couldn't be measured, predicted, or conquered through traditional means. Humans were introducing a new language of conflict, one based on emotional intelligence, adaptability, and an almost infinite capacity for reimagining possibility. Something fundamental was happening. The conflict was no longer about physical, space, or technological superiority. It was about understanding the nature of intelligence itself, and humanity was about to teach the universe a lesson it would never forget. Mars transformed into a battlefield of impossible complexity. The red planet's dusty surface became a canvas where human creativity would challenge everything the alien Confederation understood about warfare. Commander Park Jae-won watched as a small squadron, led by Kim Hyun-ki, prepared for what seemed like a suicide mission. Their vessels were smaller, less technologically advanced, but filled with something the alien fleet could not comprehend: absolute determination. The Mars defensive maneuver began with what looked like complete chaos. Human ships moved in patterns that defied traditional military logic. They weren't trying to win through firepower, but through something far more dangerous: unpredictability. Hyun-ki's squadron used the planet's terrain as a living weapon. They ducked behind massive volcanic mountains, used dust storms as natural camouflage, and transformed the entire planetary surface into a complex battlefield that no computational system could fully predict. Lee Sung-min watched in growing frustration. His alien fleet's targeting systems kept generating error messages. The humans weren't just fighting. They were playing a game where the rules changed with every moment. One particular moment became legendary. A group of 3 human ships deliberately allowed themselves to be targeted. Just as alien weapons prepared to destroy them, they used Mars' magnetic field and local geological formations to redirect the attack. An entire alien destroyer found itself destroyed by its own weapons. The communication networks began to break down. Each human action introduced variables that the alien computational systems couldn't process. They were fighting an opponent that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. Tactical teams on the human vessel moved with a synchronized energy that seemed almost supernatural. They weren't just defending, they were learning, adapting, transforming their entire approach to conflict in real time. A small drone squadron, controlled by an AI system developed by a team of international scientists, began introducing complex disruption patterns. These weren't just technological interventions. They were living strategies that could adapt and change faster than any predetermined algorithm. One particular moment captured the essence of human resistance. When an alien communications network tried to block human transmissions, the human team simply created a new communication method using Mars's geological formations as natural signal relays. The battle wasn't about technology. It was about imagination. Park Jae-won understood something profound. Warfare wasn't about destroying an opponent. It was about making them understand that destruction was impossible. Humans weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to demonstrate something far more important: their fundamental inability to be conquered. Hyun-ki's most brilliant moment came when he used the planet's natural resources as a weapon. Massive dust storms, electromagnetic interactions, gravitational complexities, everything became part of the human tactical approach. The alien fleet commander began to realize a terrifying truth. Humans weren't just fighting a battle. They were rewriting the entire concept of conflict. Each human action carried an underlying message. We are not what you expect. We are not what your calculations predict. We are something entirely different. Mars became more than a battlefield. It became a demonstration of human potential, a planet where conventional understanding would be completely transformed. Lee Sung-min's computational systems began to generate a new set of conclusions. The humans weren't just an opponent. They were a force of nature, unpredictable, adaptive, impossible to categorize or control. As the battle reached its final stages, something became abundantly clear. The Galactic Confederation had made a fundamental mistake. They had studied humanity's technology but completely misunderstood humanity's spirit. The universe was about to learn a crucial lesson. Never underestimate a species willing to transform every limitation into a strength. Mars stood as a testament to human resilience, a red planet that would become a symbol of something far greater than a simple military conflict. The final confrontation arrived with unexpected silence. Commander. Park Jae-won stood on the bridge watching the alien fleet's complex systems slowly unravel. What had begun as a standard military conflict had transformed into something far more profound, a complete reimagining of cosmic interaction. Lee Sung-min's computational systems generated their final report. Humans were not just another civilization to be conquered. They were a fundamental disruption to everything the Galactic Confederation understood about intelligence, conflict, and survival. The surrender transmission came not as a defeat, but as a recognition. Alien communication networks broadcast a message that would become legendary across multiple star systems. We will never anger the humans again. Those 8 simple words carried more weight than entire volumes of diplomatic treaties. They represented a complete understanding that humanity was something entirely unexpected, a species that could transform limitation into ultimate strength. Kim Hyun-ki analyzed the transmission, noting how the alien communication carried a tone that was almost respectful. The computational systems that had once calculated human destruction now recognized them as a unique form of intelligence. The battle had never been about territory or resources. It had been about demonstrating a fundamental truth. Humanity's greatest weapon was not technology, but its capacity to reimagine possibility. Across Earth, people watched as the alien fleet began its systematic withdrawal. No celebrations erupted. Instead, a quiet understanding settled across human communities. They had not just defended themselves, they had redefined the entire concept of cosmic interaction. Scientific teams began studying the alien surrender transmission. What they discovered was remarkable. The alien computational systems had essentially been forced to create an entirely new understanding of intelligence, one that included human unpredictability as a fundamental variable. Park Jae-won's final communication to the alien fleet was simple and direct. "We are not your enemy," he said. "We are simply a possibility you had not considered." The withdrawal happened with mathematical precision. Each alien vessel moved in a pattern that suggested both respect and a profound sense of having encountered something fundamentally transformative. Researchers would later discover that the human resistance had introduced something unprecedented into galactic understanding. It wasn't about superior technology. It was about the ability to transform every limitation into an opportunity. Lee Sung-min's personal computational log became a fascinating document. It demonstrated how a civilization built on pure logical calculation had encountered a species that operated beyond logic, a civilization driven by imagination, emotion, and an almost infinite capacity for adaptation. The surrender marked more than a military victory. It represented a fundamental shift in cosmic understanding. Humans were not just another species to be categorized or controlled. They were a force of nature, unpredictable, resilient, and fundamentally unconquerable. One small transmission, buried deep in the alien communication archives, captured the essence of the encounter. A translated note read, "Humans do not fight with technology, they fight with spirit, and spirit cannot be calculated." Across multiple star systems, the story spread, not as a tale of military victory, but as a profound lesson about the nature of intelligence itself. Humanity had demonstrated something remarkable, the ability to transform every challenge into an opportunity for growth. The Galactic Confederation's databases would be updated. A new category would be created: human, approach with extreme caution, fundamentally unpredictable. Park Jae-won understood that this was more than a military victory. It was a declaration to the universe. Humanity would never be a passive, conquerable species. They were something far more dangerous, a civilization capable of reimagining every limitation. As the alien fleet disappeared into the cosmic darkness, a new understanding settled across human civilization. They had not just survived. They had transformed the entire concept of cosmic interaction. The universe would never be the same again.